Ladies and gentlemen, a major mid-air scare was reported on board an Air India flight from Phuket to Delhi. 14 people, including 13 passengers and 4 crew members, were injured after the aircraft encountered severe turbulence during the journey. The plane reportedly experienced a sudden drop in altitude before the pilots brought the situation under control and landed safely in Delhi. The airline says medical assistance was provided immediately after landing, with several injured already discharged while others remain under treatment. The aviation regulator has begun an investigation, and reports say the pilot has also reported a serious injury on one member of the cabin crew. Air India has also released a statement earlier today. Let's take a quick look at what they have said. They have come out to say that AI 2379 was operating from Phuket to Delhi. This particular aircraft experienced in-flight turbulence, and this resulted in a momentary change in altitude. The aircraft landed safely in New Delhi, and all passengers, they have come out to say, are safe at this point of time, including the crew, have all safely disembarked. But was this preventable? Was such an incident avoidable? And what really transpired on board the plane? For more on this, we have Captain Saurabh Bhatnagar, former A320 pilot, joining us. Captain Bhatnagar, what do you make of this incident where the aircraft has reportedly fallen about 300 feet, over 14 passengers and crew who are injured? Can this be dismissed as a routine incident of turbulence?
Hi, good evening, Madhav. What I could see from the press note of what Air India has said, it looks like to me a case of wake turbulence encountering in mid-air, maybe the wide body or the large aircraft passing overhead, and because of that, there's a wake which has traveled down. Because it doesn't say the airline doesn't say about the turbulence and something. It just says the drop in altitude momentarily. Primarily, the turbulence happens to 3 reasons. One is called something called clear air turbulence (CAT). Or the other one is if it enters into thunderstorm. And third thing, if it encounters into the wingtip vortices wake or engine wake of a large aircraft, which is, the small aircraft passing below it. So it looks like to me a sudden altitude loss generally happens if it encounters the wake turbulence of a large aircraft.
Right. Now, a number of such injuries that have taken place, what does one make of these injuries? Were these passengers not wearing seat belts? Was it just the sheer force of that 300 feet drop? What could have led to this kind or this level of injuries where we're seeing passengers even being taken out on stretchers?
Yeah, actually, it was a route. It's a route. It was flying on a cruise. Must be an altitude of say 340, 360. It was on a westerly track, and had it been a CAT or something which has already been announced or experienced or is there in flight plan, captain would have switched on the seatbelt signs. Since in a cruise, the seatbelt signs must have been off, and sudden this drop in altitude must be due to the wake turbulence. That's how I feel that the aircraft lost that much of altitude and nobody was ready. Even I presume that the service must have been going on in the cabin, and that's the reason because of the sudden loss, the passengers who are not wearing the seat belts, they were, I think somebody hits the head also in the roof. So it's primarily because of the seatbelt signs not being on, and if there is no CAT prediction or there's no calls given by anybody that the CAT is being experienced, or turbulence being experienced on this route, captain would not switch the seatbelt sign on.
Right. But what are the precautions that can be taken? Because, modern aircraft have all sorts of gadgetry to sort of predict what kind of weather, for instance, is there as far as their flight path is concerned. They're aided and abetted by a number of navigational and weather tools from on ground as well. So how is it possible that such a huge event goes undetected?
No, you're absolutely right, because something like clear air turbulence, you can't see it on the radar also. It generally happens when you're passing near the jet streams, where you have the 2 different air speeds encountering it because of the sheer turbulence, because sheer speeds of these 2 air streams, you have this turbulence. So you cannot catch it on the radar. It is only prediction by the weather which we get it on the flight plan. But if the wake turbulence, something happens when if you're flying in a RVSM space where the vertical distance only 1,000 feet. And if you have opposite traffic, say Airbus 380 crossing above you at 1,000 feet, definitely the wake turbulence will travel. So what happens is pilots generally do something called a slop, that is called strategic lateral offset procedure, where you don't come in line with the wake turbulence. But it looks like to me that the aircraft would have turned right, and because of the wind, the wake would have traveled. That's primarily the wingtip vertices wake, because the lift generated so much that these tornado type wingtip vertices, if they hit the aircraft, the sudden altitude loss is imminent.
All right. Captain Bhatnagar, thank you so much for taking the time out and explaining that to our viewers.
Thank you.